That's the part in this therapy culture that nobody ever posts. You have all these doctors, whether they're, you know, true MDs or a doctor like Dr. Pepper or whatever they are, right? Because it's a wide range of different doctors out here, right? But nobody never focusing on that part, right? Because again, accountability doesn't get like accountability is not popular. Accountability, most people try to stay away from it like it's a plague. Yo, what's good, family? Welcome to another episode of the Late Night Traffic Report. I'm your boy, Mr. Sincere.
And I'm your girl, Kay Callie.
And I'm Big Mike.
So, there's a rapid trend going around. I feel like we're living in this time where everybody's healing, but nobody's actually changing. Tonight, we're going to talk about the therapy culture that we find ourselves living in, where healing is now becoming performative, and the difference between talking about growth and actually growing, well, there's a huge divide. Healing is not supposed to be something that we openly announce. It should be something that everyone around us openly sees. We see this from time to time as we scroll our timelines, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or sometime immediately. The first words that we hear, I'm healing, I'm protecting my space, I'm setting boundaries. But are you really? Everybody's healing, everybody's growing, everybody's doing the work, but there's no forward progress. Let's talk about this. The rise of therapy teams, podcasters, influencers, it just seems like now being in a culture of therapy, that's one of the more leading conversations that we have. Everybody said that they're doing the work, but we don't see any forward progress. Why do we think that's the case?
I don't know. But first of all, we have to start off by saying, therapy is powerful. Therapy is, we're not against therapy. So let's set the record with that. But I do agree that, as with other things that we see on social media, it can be more trendy, or like you said, where people are more interested in, talking about it, but I hate to say it, just in a cliche way, but not really being about it. It's more of a trendy thing for some folks. But then let's talk about the segment of the population that are so resistant to therapy. Would never, step foot in the therapist's office or in a virtual room to share, talk about their feelings. So I think it's social media that plays into it a lot.
Absolutely. So when you think about this therapy culture that we find ourselves in, often buzzwords are trauma, boundary, gaslighting, someone's being a narcissist. How its language is meant for healing become a shield against accountability.
Like everybody, you always mental illness or trauma, all those things are important to get healed. But I think like everybody's saying, it seems so trendy. And everybody seems to want to heal the same. And everybody doesn't heal the same. Everybody doesn't have the same timeline in healing. So I can't heal the way you.
Facts.
I can't heal in the same time frame as you, but everybody seems to, well, they did it, so I'm going to do it. That may not necessarily be the way you heal yourself. Not necessarily how you heal the trauma we can have the same trauma and still have a different path to healing, a different timeline to healing. And a lot of times when you are trying to heal, one of the key things is accountability and being open to the entirety of that trauma or what is out there. You can't hold something back and expect to heal it all.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point, and I don't want anybody to get me wrong. Therapy is powerful. Wanting to change is powerful. Language is powerful. But we just can't say it just because we change our verbiage. We change the language. We change the words we use. that we're changing.
Right.
Changing requires a change of behavior.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people want to take the shortcut. So it's easy for everybody to say, oh, I'm working on myself. Oh, I'm removing myself from a circle or a situation, right? But if you still, even if you remove yourself from a circle and situation and you're still actively participating,
Mhm.
it just looks a little different. You know what I mean? How can you heal if you haven't really changed your behavior?
You bring up a good point. Changing, but if sometimes that change will cause you to change the people and the environment you're in. And when you get away from the people and the environment, now you have to think of yourself almost like a onion. Now you got to start peeling back
Yeah.
the layers of you. Because to get to the healing part is peeling back the layers within yourself and looking at, because a lot of times we want to heal, but we want to heal while pointing fingers.
I love that because that's exactly what I was going to say. Oftentimes, the first step of healing is identifying. Oh, I know it should be you identifying the flaws in yourself, but it's so much easier for everyone to point the finger at someone. That person's toxic. He's toxic. She's toxic.
Or your upbringing.
Oh yeah, right.
How you relate. Yeah.
Instead of focusing on home, focusing on center, focusing on you. That's the first step, holding yourself accountability. Because the reality is, all this work that we all said that we're doing, if we haven't identified and I don't want to say condemned ourselves, but held ourselves accountable for what we bring to that topic. This situation is not going to be toxic just by itself. It's what do you actively put in? How do you actively participate in those particular toxic situations and relationships?
When you're changing, it's something else that comes with change, and that you want to put in that work.
Yeah.
You're going to have to put in that work, and a lot of people don't want to 100% put in the work. And we all been there before. I know I've had. There's some things you want to change, but yet there's some things you want to keep. I want to change, but I want to keep.
But you can't play it.
You can't play
You can't have it both ways.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, I've been there. I want to change, but I want to keep. I know that's bad, but maybe I can keep 10% up.
Yeah. So what you're trying to do is you're asking for change while foundationally or fundamentally remaining the same. That's bad math.
Don't work hard. Don't work.
Let's talk about the difference between healing privately and performing healing publicly. What does that mean to you guys? When I say that, what does that mean? Doing it in private versus doing it publicly. In order to truly heal, do you think both have to go on?
I think it needs to be private for it to be true and sustainable. I think if you're more focused on the public part of it, it can potentially be more for show or something that you're doing to prove yourself to others. But for the sustainability and for it to be true change and really, making a change in your life, you really has to be the work that's done in private, and it can be evident through, your actions, through your changing the environments or things that you do, and that can be the testament to others. But I think if it's more, you have to put on social media, I'm protecting my peace, I'm doing, all of that. That's more of the show part of it. It's almost like you're trying to convince yourself that, hey, I'm doing this. The other thing I think with change, I think just as humans, it's so hard for us to give up things. Because with change, you do have to give up something. But what you gain in that is greater.
More valuable.
But as humans, we're so focused on holding on to our small piece of the sandbox and not understanding that if we actually give up that small piece, that, God is going to bless us with something even greater than what we even thought. We might be asking for, this small piece, and we're going to get something that's triple times what we could have even, imagined.
No, I was just that's perfect. That healing analogy you gave, because when publicly do it's like self-gratification along the way. And when you do it privately, it affects and helps the people you don't even realize watching you, because they're going to be recognizing the change in you, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or physically. And that gives you a chance to give honor to God and say, hey, look, I wasn't supposed to announce it. I just wanted to walk it through.
So I like both perspectives, right? I think what you're saying is spot on, but I think it's a combination of both.
Mm.
Okay, right? I think by you doing the work privately, remember in the opening that we said, right? It's something that people would know.
Yes, yes.
So people noticing, that's the public to me.
Yes.
You're doing the work, right? Doing the work private, and that should change your outlook, your behaviors. And if you're doing it right, you're taking accountability. So other people can instantly pick up on that. And I don't think you were saying, I know you weren't saying that as far as boasting and announcing it, letting everybody know, hey, I'm changing now. But what I'm saying is I think they kind of go together. I just think the order, and I think that how you execute it, right? Because I can handle my business and change and work on myself privately, but when I step out or I'm around people, you should be able to pick up those new behaviors, this new version of myself. So I think that, we need to really focus on understanding, pain is an event. Healing is a process. But some people turn pain into personality and call it growth. Think about that. So what I really want to talk about is turning trauma into identity. I think that's a perfect segue into that. I think a lot of people these days, they take that pain, they take that trauma, and they actually weaponize it, right? So you have a small population of people that said that they're healed, right? And they feel like they've done the work. But you've internalized all the work, right? All of the pain, and now you weaponize it against your inner circle, the people that you have relationships. And it's still absent of what we keep talking about is the most important goal, if you will, when you're healing and doing the work. It's accountability. And you can identify trauma, you can label it, you could use it as motivation, but until you look into that and say, hey, these are things that I'm accountable of, right? Because a lot of the trauma that we experience is self-inflicted. People really, of course, there's some situations that's not, but what I'm saying as adults, it's the positions that we put ourselves in, it's the relationships that we stay, or situationships that we stay too long in. It's the people that we constantly invite into our lives when God has said, hey, they might just be there, say, scheduled to be there for a month. You expand or extend the lease,
Right.
and you keep them around for 2 years. You know what I mean? So I think it really goes all back to accountability. And we already said so many times before is accountability is that new drug that nobody wants to get. Nobody wants to take it. Everybody's staying far away from accountability these days. But everybody's healing though. So do you think it's easy to mistaken awareness for transformation? What I mean by that is, when we just talked about people can identify it and identify their trauma, their pain, and they internalize it. And then instead of really doing the healing, because you're aware of it, but you're really not transforming or becoming a better version out of it. You then weaponize it. That now becomes armor, and you re-enter the relationship market. You re-enter the, if you have problems with your family, you re-enter those relationships fully aware of your trauma, but you're not transformed. You're now using it for armor. You're using it for an additional layer that you can kind of, let's be honest, manipulate or try to get your way in, whatever the situation may
There's a
be.
situation.
So that's why I said there's a difference between being aware of your trauma and actually transforming from
So
that trauma.
would you say like the awareness is like the knowing, like identifying
Yes.
what um your opportunities are, but then the transformation would be the action, the
Yes.
steps that you need to take.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the awareness part, we kind of talked about it earlier. When you're healing, it goes back to accountability and it's circle, weaponizing it. When we're healing, we're the last one that we want to identify the trauma and the awareness. I'm aware of your trauma. I see your issues, but once again, we're not healing because we're so focused.
You're just branding the pain.
Right. You're so focused on everybody else and making them aware of their trauma, their actions. It's hard for you to heal and put in that work to transform yourself into a healed person. Because sometimes, just like alcoholics, when you are recovering, you're always going to be alcoholic. It's until you become self-accountable enough where you can even be around it.
Yes. You're disciplined enough.
You're disciplined enough. You're accountable enough because you can't, in the beginning, you just can't be around it at all.
Right.
But when you're healing, there's certain things and certain people you just cannot be around.
Yeah, for sure.
Until you are healed and disciplined enough and accountable enough to say, it's safe for me to be around certain people.
I love what you're saying. I think this kind of segues into, our next segment. But, I think that it's important for everyone to understand that, healing is about becoming, aware or known of your wounds. But it's more importantly about becoming free from it.
Right.
So again, I think that ties in awareness versus transformation. What do you think is the hardest part of healing? A lot of people will probably say, self-reflection. Again, everything that we're talking about is sort of tied back to accountability tonight. But I think a lot of people would say the hardest part of healing is the self-reflection.
I, I think the self-reflection, because I think a lot of times, even when we make the decision to get therapy, we almost feel like, oh, I need therapy because of how my childhood was, or because I was, in this bad relationship that lasted too long, and things that happened in that relationship. And it is not to negate that, those things weren't traumatic and it may play a part in where you are. But there's still, I think, in my experience, I think when you get down to the crux of the healing, or even, when you enter therapy, it still always comes back to you. Like why you might have chosen to navigate and attract those people in your circle, why you continue to do that. It may lead back to, your childhood and everything, but you still have to take accountability, and it wasn't your fault. I mean, we were born into the situation that we're born in. We didn't get to select our family and all of that, but you still have to, being an adult, for children, it's different maybe, but being an adult, you have to be in a space where you just got to take the accountability.
Yeah.
You just got to take it and then move on. And I think the sooner, and I think the word, the theme is accountability. And sooner you take the accountability, doesn't mean accountability is just accepting, what you need to do to move forward. And that may not be the technical term, but that's how
Right.
how I coin it. And I think the sooner you do that, I think the faster the healing process kind of starts, because then you stop pointing it at others. You stop pointing, because you can't change your upbringing. You can't change your mother. You can't change that your father left, or your mother was, had her own situations that she might have dealt with that caused you to grow up quicker. You can't change any of that. But if you're accountable, it helps you move forward.
I love that. I think because, just personally, right? My transformation. One of the first things I had to really say to myself, yes, I was hurt, but guess what? I've also hurt. You know what I mean? So I think the healing process really starts there because you acknowledge that, hey, I'm in pain. I hurt. I've been hurt. There's things that has been done to me, right? Some self-inflicted, others not. But in order for you to kind of move, I don't want to say move past it because it's not just,
Right.
Many years of my life, I kind of was I kind of had that approach to things. Like, whatever, it didn't kill me. It made me stronger. I can move right on. I'm a man. I don't supposed to, but put all that aside. I think the very first thing you need to say, yes, you need to say it out loud. You might need to scream it. Many, many times. I was hurt, but I've also hurt
Right.
other people as well. And I think that that's the part in this therapy culture that nobody ever posts. You have all these doctors, whether they're, you know, true MDs or a doctor like Dr. Pepper or whatever they are, right? Because it's a wide range of different doctors out here, right? But nobody never focusing on that part, right? Because again, accountability doesn't get like accountability is not popular. Accountability, most people try to stay away from it like it's a plague. So the best thing about accountability though, if it goes, it builds character.
But outside of self accountability, which y'all both correct, that's first real identify. The next one I think a lot of people are afraid of, or just it's hard, is identifying the steps for you to heal and understanding you can't skip a step and you can't rush it. You just said it. You can't rush it and you can't skip a step. And you can't feel pressure like you're on somebody else's time. It's about you. That's one time you have to be selfish and say, it's about me. I'm not going to let you rush me in this healing. I'm not going to let you make me feel pressured. If it takes me 10 years or 2 years, I'm going to heal for myself and I'm going to be selfish about healing.
I like that. And before we jump into the next segment, just other thing that everybody should ask yourself if you're truly considering or actively pursuing change, healing. Are you really healing or are you just explaining why you don't change?